I was privileged enough to be surrounded by people who really embraced me and my ethnicity and my cultural background. So instead of feeling like my ethnicity is a cause of alienation, I've really thought about it as something that makes me unique and sets me apart, making me a unique individual. I think that.
Hi, my name is Sydney Glickman. I'm 20 years old. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. To answer the first question, for most of my life, I did not feel very connected to my Asianness. Being an adoptee, I didn't have any real connections or bridges to my Chinese heritage. When I was younger, my parents used to take me to a few Lunar New Year festivals and parties, and I actually was in Chinese school for a year or two, but nothing ever really stuck. So for most of my life, I was just cruising by, being just almost like a white kid in school. I didn't have knowledge of Chinese cooking. I didn't have knowledge of Chinese traditions or of
Have you always felt connected to your Asianness?
Honestly, no, because I moved to a pretty predominantly white neighborhood in middle school. So during that time, that was like when everyone was trying to figure out who they were. And also, I was trying to fit into those white stereotypes and standards, and it was just very hard and confusing for me to stay connected with my Asianness.
I didn't really have much, and then I came to Temple actually, and that was part of the reason why I was coming to Temple, is there was such a high diversity compared to Vermont, which is my home state, which is also one of the whitest states, so there was never really much of an Asian community in general, much less a Chinese community. And coming to Temple, I found a really solid group of Asians who helped me learn and grow as a person and become more comfortable with being Asian and happy with being Asian and learning about different cultures, not only of Chinese, but of Vietnamese and Japanese and all other Asians that there could be that I have interacted with.
Hi, my name's Emilie. I'm 20 years old and I go by she, her pronouns.
Have you always felt connected to your Asianness? Have you always felt pride in being Asian? Why or why not? If not, and you do now, was there an event that made you feel more connected and proud?
Yes, I think I've always really felt pride in being Asian, and not little things, but events such as being able to speak my own language, being able to cook my own dishes, and enjoy those cultural foods have really been a source of my pride. And I think this comes from being surrounded with people and being privileged enough to be surrounded by people who really embrace me and my culture. And instead of feeling alienated due to my ethnicity, I've really thought about it as, and I think this comes from the fact that I was privileged enough to be surrounded by people who really embraced me and my ethnicity and my cultural background. So instead of feeling like my ethnicity is a cause of alienation, I've really thought about it as something that makes me unique and sets me apart, making me a unique individual. I think that my Asianness and my cultural background makes me who I am. It encompasses a lot of my traits as a person, and I take great pride in having that cultural background and having that shape me into who I am today.
My name is Shreya. My age is 20, and my pronouns are she, her. Did you read the first question?
Have you always felt like the title Asian fit you or encompassed you? Why or why not?
No, for a long time I felt like a very big disconnect from the title Asian because in media growing up, the Asian was always associated with East Asian countries and people from East Asian countries. And so I never felt like that title really fit me. I always felt like I needed the qualifier South in front of it. And even then, I felt like I wasn't perceived in society as Asian, which led to a lot of like disconnect from my identity as a kid, because I was like, I'm technically Asian, but like people don't view me that way. And so it was really weird, because it was like, when people think about Asian people, they don't really think about people who look like me. So I felt like I was in this weird category that didn't really exist, and it was just like an internalized place.
When I was little, I actually grew up pretty Asian. I grew up in Flushing, Queens, which is one of the largest Asian communities in America. So I guess I could say like I grew up like the Asian title did fit me really, really well. However, growing up in a non-diverse community, later on in life, it made it really, really hard for me to have that Asian in me still like remain unchanged.
Hi, my name is Kevin Jirachertchoowong. I'm 20 years old and I am a student at Temple University studying mechanical engineering. My pronouns are he, him, his. The first time I felt a sense of pride for my identity as an Asian American was in college. In grade school and high school, I never really had any pride with my identity. I was constantly bullied and bombarded with racist, anti-Asian remarks just because I was Asian. I felt like I always had to fit in with the culture of other students in order to not be made fun of. After coming to college, I felt like I found my safe place. I've met many people who have faced the same situation as me. I was more comfortable sharing my story as an Asian American and my Thai culture without being afraid of hateful opinions that may be lashed out at me. I started to embrace my community and gaining a sense of pride for my identity, something I thought would never happen.
Hello everyone, my name is Emilie Lee. I'm 20 years old and I go by she, her, hers pronouns, and some of you guys may know me as a junior here at Temple University. And today I'll be answering the question of, have you always felt pride in being Asian, why or why not? If not and you do now, was there an event that made you feel more connected and proud? So I'd just like to say that I'm speaking from my own personal experience of growing up in a predominantly white neighborhood here in Philadelphia, and I would say that I have not always felt pride or connection to being Asian for a majority of my childhood, mainly due to my surroundings as well as the media that I consumed as a kid. So I know specifically in my grade school, I was maybe 1 out of 3 Asians in my grade and maybe 1 of 15 in my entire school. So as you can imagine, it felt pretty isolating to have such a small group of people you can really relate to for cultural and cuisine aspects, things like that. And so to combat this sort of shame I had with my outer appearance as well as my culture, I tried really hard to fit in with my other classmates, and I wanted to do things like hate going to Saturday Chinese school, or ask for peanut butter sandwiches instead of the lunches that my parents would make for me, things like that nature. And it really wasn't until college and when I came to Temple and when I joined ASA was when I could begin to accept and take pride in being Asian and my identity. And especially when I came to ASA and I found people who shared cultural aspects and similar backgrounds as me, and these people who really opened my eyes and could show me the beauty and diversity and all the brighter sides of growing up as an Asian American, and instead of surrounding myself with people who perhaps made me feel ashamed of my culture. And especially now that I'm in college and it's 2021, representation of Asian Americans in media has definitely changed for the better. Musical artists like Rich Brian or Nicki, and movies like Shang-Chi or Crazy Rich Asians coming into popularity has definitely opened my eyes to seeing people who look like me on the big screen, or just having sold out concerts and shows, which has definitely helped with increasing my pride and my connection to being an Asian American.
For a long time, I internalized a lot of shame about being Indian. I didn't even grow up in a very, like, where I grew up did have a lot of white people, but there were a lot of brown people too. It was just the fact that, like, you just feel weird for being different, and the fact that you have to explain your culture to other people, it always like just leads to you feeling like there's something wrong or different with you. And so I internalized a lot of shame from it, and like especially I remember this one incident, like my friend, she was also Asian, but like she was like East Asian, I was like obviously South, but she like we were picking her up from like my mom was picking us both up, and she was playing like Bollywood music in the car, and I was so embarrassed, and I yelled at my mom, I was like, turn that off. I was like so upset. My friend was the one who was like, no, that's cool, like I really like it. And it really like was a moment where I was like, oh, maybe the things I think are shameful aren't as shameful. But it was only really until I got to college / my senior year of high school where I was starting to be like, oh, I think I should discover more parts, like I should reinvest in discovering parts of my culture, because I'm so disconnected from it, and I don't want to raise, like when I grow up as an adult, I don't want to be someone who isn't connected to their culture.
Some components I've definitely retained from my parents probably is food and language. I speak Canto fluently, and that is something I've always taken great pride in. I know a lot of other people, including my little brother, has kind of lost that language component of our culture because they want to fit in. And so in Canto, he would call me Dede as meaning older sister, and it's a sign of respect. And I remember there at some point in time that he stopped calling me that, and he started calling me by my name. And obviously I let that go, but now thinking back, it's very bittersweet because on one hand it signals that he's growing up, he's doing things his way. However, it's also sad to see that that part of culture is starting to be lost now. And he's doing it because there are many times when he'll be on the phone with me calling me older sister instead of my name, and his friends who aren't Asian would be like, that's so weird, why would you not call your sister by your name? And that was a great source of embarrassment for him, I feel like, and it's a shame to see that part of culture in our family slowly fade away. And something else I really wish was retained culturally is probably reading and writing Chinese. Even though I can speak both Mandarin and Canto fluently, I can definitely not read and write it fluently. And I really wish that my parents had enforced it more, so by this point I would be able to read and write and take pride in doing so, and take pride in having that skill also. Your parents have maintained.
So a lot of cultural components that my parents maintained and that I maintained still is mainly food. Especially my sophomore year, I moved to an apartment where I was able to have a kitchen, so I tried to learn to cook different cultural dishes and like share them with my roommates. Definitely made an appreciation of how much effort it is to make food, because I did not realize, well, I mean, I knew, but like when you make it yourself, there's a lot of effort and time and love that goes into all those dishes, and it makes you appreciate all the flavors that you grew up with. Also, like there's a lot of blind practices. Like there's certain things that like culturally you're not supposed to do, like you're always supposed to accept money with your right hand and things like that, like small things. But like those are all just like really like blind practices that you don't know the reason for. I mean, you know the reason for it, but you don't like necessarily believe in the reason, but you still do it. I feel like those are all things that I still maintain. Things that I really wish that my parents had done for me while I was growing up was that I don't speak the language that my parents speak, and I definitely know it better than my little brother, but like we both aren't fluent in it at all. And it's only like my parents both said that they didn't want me to not be able to speak English well, because they were really worried that like if I was bilingual, that like I wouldn't be able to speak English well, and people would not understand me / would make fun of me. It's ironic because both my parents knew English from India because they learned it there, but which would make them think that I could be bilingual. But anyway, but basically like only when I came to like college, again, I joined ASA, like I was trying to rediscover like parts of my culture. I tried to join a Kannada class. Kannada is a language that my parents and I speak, but like I tried to join a Kannada class, tried to have my parents teach it to me, but I really wish they had spoken the language when I was growing up, and just like so I could speak it now, because there's so many conversations that they have that I don't get the jokes or I don't understand the movies, and I just really wish I could. But yeah, that's like something I really wish I could have learned when I was growing up.
With Temple and with ASA, I really became much more proud of being Asian, and it's kind of sad to think about it, that for over 75% of my life, I never really saw myself as Asian. I just saw myself as a person in this world. And now being here at college, I am very proud to be Asian. I get to be on e-board for the Asian Students Association, and we get to host this amazing event, PAYS, where we'll talk about all these different facets about what it is to be Asian.